All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 136th episode of The Get Down, brought to you by Digital Music Pool. My name is Cream.
GaryW here.
We have another special guest. I'm super hyped about this one. What up, Jake Shore?
Yo, what's up, boys? How we doing?
We're doing great, man. We're
just another Monday out here, hanging out. We're recording a pod, having a good time. Looking forward to this conversation for sure.
Hey, this is the best day to have a podcast if we're DJs, right? I feel like we're either we're definitely the weekend's over. Hopefully we rested for a day, and yeah, happy to talk with you guys today.
Yeah, man, we really appreciate you having you here. And I was saying to you a little bit off air, I kind of started following your journey a couple years back, like sort of as you were teaching at the time. You were a teacher, but also pursuing your music career. And it's been like incredible to get to see you go from, just like a lot of other artists out there pursuing this dream to now sort of living your dream and, being in music full time and touring and traveling. So, I mean, congrats. And it's just surreal a little bit to have you on the pod. So we appreciate you. But what's that journey been like, man? How you feeling?
Oof, you gotta give me chills a little bit. It's always cool to hear it back from somebody else's perspective. I mean, I live and breathe it every single day, right? And I think that's really what it's taken. It's just a culmination of, I always think of it as like a brick by brick mentality. And at some point when you do that religiously, it's like, then one day you do have a house that you built, right? You know what they say, they build it, they will come. But hearing it from your end, I mean, that means the world, man. It's so humbling to hear that there's people that have really enjoyed watching it. I think I've seen that several times now, come across comments and messages where people really are like enamored and also inspired by just something that I've wanted to do for myself. I think, there's a lot of power in that. So the journey itself has been amazing. I mean, I've really learned to love the build. I've been saying that lately. And as DJs, right, we're kind of like, what about the drop, right? But like in the sense that, not the analogy there is with music, but in the sense that, the build is what you really, I think, looking back and even looking forward is, and I still feel like I'm in the build, is what it's all about, right? And I've been learning more and more to just really appreciate it and love it. And, from when you maybe have followed me, and it didn't just start then, right? This has been years and years. Man, it's been a journey, but I've learned, one thing I've taken away from it is to stop and smell those roses on this journey, right? So overall, it's been a blessing, and I'm just excited to be here to talk about it and hear your guys' perspective on things too, as well, with your journeys as well.
When did you start DJing and producing, number one? And then also, how long were you doing the teaching thing and DJing? Like, was it like 3, 4, 5, 6 years?
Yeah, so crazy enough, I guess technically I've been DJing professionally for about 9 or 10 years now. I started that right around the time, a couple years, I started that in college, and then a couple years after, I left college, and fresh out of college, I started my teaching job. So I taught for 8 years, leading up to about a year and a half ago, elementary school. So started as a 5th grade teacher, was one of those teachers who didn't mind moving around and kind of jumping to different teams. So I taught on the 2nd grade level, I taught 3rd grade level, and that's kind of where I wrapped my career up. But yeah, during that whole time, I was primarily just a DJ, and I hadn't produced yet. So I was doing, I was more of an open format DJ, kind of just working my way throughout the club circuit in Chicago, where I'm originally from. And then about 3.5 years ago now, is when I first picked up Ableton and really just absorbed. I remember I was in like this absorption mode. It was weird. It was like for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, I could really like teach myself anything I really want to if I really put that, effort in. So, YouTube University, getting a couple good mentors, really just being relentless with the pursuit of knowledge is what, got me to this point now. But yeah, I've only been producing for about 3.5 years, DJing for 10, and I taught for 8 within that time. So yeah, a lot of experience under my belt, I guess you could say, now saying that out loud.
Yeah. How was that work-life balance? Like, how did you balance the teaching and DJing, and then, obviously as a DJ trying to market yourself and keeping up with all the things that we need to keep up with these days?
Yeah, I think, keeping in mind what you guys really push here and promote, as far as just like other DJs tuning in, something for me, with that whole work life balance, that's what most of us do. We all like DJing is kind of like, it may be our front passion, but it's oftentimes a side hustle for most of us until we can really start living off of it. But, um, you know, the work life balance came with a lot of successes and a lot of failures. I grew up a lot throughout that too. I mean, when I first started DJing, I was 19. When I first started my career as a teacher, responsible for 25 fifth graders, I was 21 years old. Um, and those two, are very opposite career paths that deal on opposite ends of the week. So I learned a lot. I mean, I think DJing for me too, early on, was more of a kind of party popularity thing for a while. Um, I wouldn't say I really got super serious with it and like really locked in and dialed in with it until I started producing. Um, but yeah, that work life balance was always something that you had to stay on top of, and there were times where I tilted that balance one way too many, and I could have got burnt, in the sense of possibly losing my job and things, but I tried to keep them pretty separate, but I also, had to really focus on how I spent my time. Luckily for the most part, I had weekends off as a teacher, and I was able to DJ on those weekends. So they didn't overlap too much, but as you guys know, people don't stop partying throughout the week, and there were some gigs in that case. So it was always definitely trying to keep on my P's and Q's with all the things we deal with as DJs, and then trying to go in at 7 a.m. in the morning and teach kids. So
Yeah. I mean, Gary did it. How many years did you do it, Gary? Where Gary would work
I
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then have to wake up and go teach kids on Monday morning. I'm like, dude, how
yeah.
are you even alive to go do
yeah,
that?
13 years I did that, and it was
Hey,
just
cheers, bro. Yeah, good for you.
it was exhausting, and like also at the same time um I was coaching and I was doing all types of extra things to make money. So like it was a lot, and like trying to balance it was a lot. And then also with running Get Down and booking our DJs, it was just it made it easier for me to walk away from teaching because we are now essentially, bringing up young DJs and young talent in our market. So that's another question I had for you. Like, did you find, because us as teachers, I feel like, you're born to do it. Like, you did it for 8 years. You didn't walk away after the first year or two, right?
No,
So
no.
like you obviously had a passion for it. So like when I walked away from it, I felt like there was going to be a void there. Like I wasn't doing something that was. I'm like, okay, well, I'm DJing. That's cool. Like, but is that really? Am I giving back anything? And having our young DJs and booking young DJ talent, I think filled that void a little bit. So like, did you have when you walked away from teaching? Did you were you nervous about it? Like, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that I always joke and say that it took me 8 years to finally walk away from it because I think, society tells you got to go to school, you got to get a decent paying job if I'm a teacher. And, that's what you're supposed to do. So I think the first 8 years was really just me building a huge safety net because I got tenured. I was actually able to get my master's in administration, all along knowing that what I really wanted to do. But yeah, no, I mean, I also felt like I had a passion for teaching. I was very good at teaching. I loved teaching. But I also felt like at some point, maybe in the last couple of years before I left, it started to kind of just become, especially after COVID, I think was really the initiator of it all. It really just kind of felt like, okay, I know I'm good at this. I know I can do it. But what's life really about? Sticking with something that you just know you're good at, know that you're safe, it's safe, and know that it'll always keep, money in the bank and, set up a good retirement fund and all that other good noble stuff that comes with being an educator. But, at some point you also gotta, I think, to be honest with you, like I was, the decision came with also some I think it's time to be selfish and really go after what I want, so the void wasn't really there because I think I was finally so ready, and also kind of just the way that I left teaching, which we can get into a little bit, was just like it made so much sense, and the universe folded everything perfectly so that I was like, yep, I knew this was the right decision. The first
Yeah, I was
void
gonna say,
maybe
was
though,
there like one moment that you were like, all
uh,
right, I gotta do this?
No, I think I knew the year before I actually put in my year's leave of absence, which technically I have to put in my year's leave of absence in the February of the year prior that I'm gonna like take off, right? So like I have to let them know in advance. Especially since I'm tenured, I can take a leave of absence and contractually still be able to come back like a year later, God willing. But even then, even a year before then, I was like, you know what, dude, I think this is gonna have to be my last year. Like talked about it the year before, but now it's like, I just got to do it. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen here, right? I can always come back and just get my job. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think there wasn't just one thing, but there were things that happened after I put my year's leave of absence in those following months. There was things that started to happen that just, like I said, solidified my decision. It was also the reaction from my coworkers and the people I told that I'm leaving teaching. You know, it was not one person was like, "Are you sure? Like that doesn't make sense." You know, and remember these are type A people, like teachers that like pretty much have everything by the book lined up. And all of them were just like, "Yeah, it's your time. Like go do you. Like happy for me." And you know, those were other indicators that I was making the right decision. I guess the only void I ever really felt was that first fall back and I didn't go into school. Um, Something about just the atmosphere or like the murmurs of the kids in the hallway, like that feeling of like the fresh new year. I even felt it a little bit this year. Now this would be my second fall out of teaching. I think that'll never go away because there's such a, I don't know if I would call it a euphoria necessarily. It's a little bit of stress, but it's a little bit like, okay, new beginning feel that you get at the beginning of the year. I do miss that a little bit. So that was a little bit of the void, but nah, I didn't. I
That's
knew this is what
that
I wanted to do.
that fall, that like going into fall, I always like that nervous excitement always reminds me of like playing a new gig, like playing a new venue,
Yeah.
like that. You know what I mean? Like you're like super excited about it, but you're kind of nervous and you want to do a
Yeah.
good job and you don't know what's gonna happen really, and it's
Right.
it's all new. And
You
yeah,
know,
so yeah, I get
you're
that.
prepared. You know you're prepared for what you need to do, but even though you're prepared and you know like the gist of it, it's still a little nerve wracking, right?
Right.
Yeah, that is a very similar feeling that I still get as a DJ. You know, people ask me, "Am I nervous?" I don't know if I'm so nervous. It's just like a certain type of like being dialed in, right? Or like it looks like I'm nervous, but I'm just hyper focused on what I got to get done. You know?
Yeah, it's like an excitement. It's sort of, I always relate it to, I don't know if you used to play sports, but like playing sports, competitive
Oh yeah,
sports,
football.
and you get that like, not anxiety, but you have those butterflies because you're ready to go. You've done all the
Yep.
work, and now it's like, all right, game time. Let's go. This is the fun part. Let's go do it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that if you don't have that about the thing you love doing, you don't really love it. You know?
Right.
Right.
I
If
feel
you're not
like us
feeling that way,
yeah.
then maybe you should stop doing what you're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like us as humans, like especially if you really love something, like I was talking about this the other day with a friend, you know, I think never to take anything away from what people are trying to do, but you can tell who wants things more. You can tell who loves things that they're doing. I love what I'm doing. I think it bleeds through on everything that I do and how I speak about, you know, this music thing and what I'm approaching, but like if you don't love what you're doing, you don't have that nervousness or whatever we're calling it, steel butterflies, I think they call it, right? But um, yeah, I feel like people that really love what they're doing, it's normal to get that. And if you don't get that, then I think you're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
I think also when you go all in on whatever it is, whatever your passion is, right? For us, it's music and producing and DJing. But when you do that, it's like, all right, now there's some pressure that you have to kind of deliver on these goals, right? And we're setting really high goals, and we know how much work it takes to reach those goals. So it's like that little bit of added pressure where we know we could always go back to doing what we used to do,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, all right, I want to be successful. I want to reach these goals. I want to get to these bigger stages. And so there's that little bit of added pressure, but I think that pressure drives you to work harder and drives you
Yep.
to be the best version of you that you can be. And like to me, if I don't have that feeling, now that I've felt that, it'd be so hard to go do something that I don't have that passion for or I'm not driven to do, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm
So
100% with you there. And I've said those words to myself and I've explained that even openly and publicly and even on social media. Like I looked at it as I'm choosing plan A. There is no plan B, and plan A is looking pretty good so far. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna hope that that's the way it keeps going. But yeah, when you make it so that there is no plan B, and I know everybody's situation is different. And again, it took me 8 years to really decide. Like, all right, I'm gonna go. Yeah, the pressure for sure is there, but what's that old saying, right? The pressure makes diamonds, right? I'm a person who watches like I religiously watch like Netflix documentaries on people's lives that have been successful or have done something that has changed the world, and it rings true. Almost every single one of these people that does something successful or at some point in their life they bet on themselves. They put all their chips in. They took that risk. They took that leap. And what that means is like to me, if I want what I want, there's going to be some big risks that I got to take. Calculated, of course, and again, I built a safety net so that it's at the end of the day, like I could go back to teaching if I really wanted to. But, you know, it is a risk. I mean, I left my career, I left the city that I grew up in. And I don't think no risk, no reward, right? They say. So I'm with you on that one.
What was the thing that made you take that risk? Was it like a caliber of gig you were getting, or the caliber of gigs, that you were getting repetitively? Was it somebody asked you to come move out to a different city?
Yeah,
Like, what was?
yeah, it was a little bit of both. On one end, I felt like I left teaching. This is about 6 months into the new year, where at this point, I'm living at home. I'm saving some money. I'm making use of my time. I never let a day go by where I'm not. But I was looking around and I'm like, okay. At that point, I think the vision I'd set out for myself 3 years prior, when I first started picking up production and really started locking in, I had almost met that vision almost. And it needed some refining. And I think that's any good vision, right? You plan for it, you execute it after you have it. But then at the end of that routine, you got to go back and refine it to the next step. And for me, I was like, okay, I've done everything I can do in Chicago. I opened up and have played at some of the biggest venues, the biggest festivals. I mean, what is next? Like, what's the next trajectory? And for me, I felt like I needed some representation, and I also needed to branch out and really start making my way around the country. Um, and a friend of mine, Austin Kramer, I don't know if you guys know Austin Kramer, but he used to run the dance editorial playlist for Spotify at one point. And I got connected with him. Can't remember exactly why, but you know, I remember at one point I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start tapping the people I know have some connections and verbally explain to them what I want, which was representation, a job that's going to put money in my pocket that has to do with what I'm doing musically or content based. And it's funny, once you guys maybe have experienced this too, but sometimes you need to just vocalize what you need and put it out there because otherwise people don't know. People don't
Right.
know what your goals are. Always, you can't expect them to, right? But I remember I did that and happened to be the first person I told. He linked me up with a management company called Big Night Talent, and they are a management company within a larger entertainment company called Big Night Entertainment that pretty much, is a conglomerate here in Boston. They have over 20 plus venues across from music venues to restaurants to clubs, and I had a really good call, like one like this. One thing led to another. The head manager asked me if I could come out and do a show at one of their venues for this was last Halloween, basically to test me out and try me out. It was opening up for Joel Corey on a Halloween show at Big Night Live. Came out, we caught really good vibes. I crushed the show. By the end of the night, he asked me, "What would I think about moving to Boston?" I was like, "What do you mean?" Kind of parlayed not only signing me as an artist, but also offered me a full-time position to kind of kickstart their TikToks for all their venues that didn't really have them yet set up. So that parlayed me to move here to Boston. And with now a new salary that had something to do with like what I'm already doing, which was making content, and it was tied in with a management company who was going to develop me as an artist, I was like, okay, this is exactly what I started asking people for.
Yeah.
And it gave me enough security to be like, I think I'm going to take this. I think I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. Just like I can always go back to teaching, I can always go back to Chicago.
Yeah, that's
Um,
like level 2 risk, right? That you took right there was like
yeah,
leave
yeah.
city, sign
So
with an agent or management deal, and different city.
yes,
That's another big risk to take, but
yeah,
one that
hundred
seems like it's
percent.
working
So
out pretty well.
while I say risks, like still didn't know what was going to happen. I still didn't know how things would go. And, the act of, making that decision is a risk. Like, I realized so many things that I did prior to that got me to even this position. And so they weren't just random, right? I mean, I had to work towards even getting in this position. I'm pretty sure that management team saw the same things you saw, that trajectory from like, where did this kid come from as a teacher? And he's like making these oh, he also makes music. Oh, wait, he's been a DJ for a while. Okay, maybe there's something there, And so all those little things that happened led to a chance for me to, like, again, take a risk. But, in some ways it was a calculated risk. It wasn't just like throw all things to the wind and go. But, I felt like it was finally time. Somebody was telling me like, okay, you got to take this, and it has worked out. It has worked out for sure.
It's funny that something so simple as asking for what you want can many times get you what you want. And we tell our DJs this all the time. It's like, we're not mind readers. We don't know if you want to work at a certain place or what your goals are, or you don't want to do something. You have to explain it to us. And sometimes it's simple as like, hey, I would like to do this, or it is my goal to do this. And just vocalizing that and putting it out into the world can like jumpstart that whole process and reaching those goals. So
yeah, that's been a huge piece of, if I could give one, I know we're probably gonna end up talking about more pieces of advice and tidbits, but one thing I try and tell anybody, not just in DJing world, but just ask. At the end of the day, you're gonna get two answers: yes or no. The no is just a screen door, right? It's just right now. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe you're not. Maybe it just doesn't make sense. But if you get a no, what I would also, here's the second piece of that: ask why. Why are you getting a no right now? Is there something that you can do differently? Is there something that you need more of, or she can do less? But then a yes, oh man, who knows where that yes could lead to? And I think there's obvious ways to go about asking for things or putting that out there. Like, you don't want to be the naggy person that keeps shooting their shot and, is kind of aggressive in that sense. But I think if your head's in the right place and you have the good intentions, there's nothing wrong with just asking, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten, that song signed or that gig or that opportunity with somebody just because I asked, and then that, my example just a minute ago was a huge one. So.
Yeah. And many times, even if you do get a no, it kind of puts you on that person's radar so that maybe down the line, they'll reach back out to you and say, hey, Kareem, or hey, Jake, or hey, Gary, like, I know you asked me about this a while ago. What do you think about doing this 6 months later, kind of thing? And a lot of times it'll come back around for sure.
Isn't it so sweet when it comes back around?
Oh yeah, it's the sweetest.
The best.
Like, oh yeah, 6 months ago I was trying to do that, and now it finally came to fruition. I love that.
Or when they come back around and it doesn't even make sense for you to do that anymore, and you're like, oh man, I wish I could help you out, but I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, or like asking for a higher rate or to get your rate or whatever it might be, and then finally.
It's always, but it's one of those things where you don't make them feel any worse about it. You just smile and wave, boys.
I want to talk a little bit about your brand, and I think one of the things that I was drawn to about your brand is, like we said, you're really relatable, and it comes off that you're really genuine. And I think also just in hearing your story, it took you 8, 9, 10 years of DJing to start reaching some of the goals. And I think it's interesting. We talked to Zuzu. He's zooming, right? 3 years, 4 years, whatever it's been. And then someone like you, it takes a little bit longer, and just everybody's journey is a little bit different, but you could still reach those goals. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 year or 10 years, you could still get to where you want to go if you're putting that work in. And I think that's something that really resonates with your fans, because you've put your whole journey out there and people understand where you came from and kind of where you're going. So how do you do that intentionally? Is that just your personality? How do you get that across to your fans?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think initially, first off, that's who I am. Who you see on camera and who you're speaking to right now, that's who I am every day. God bless my girlfriend's heart, because she has to live with me. But and I pride myself on things like, I have a group of friends since kindergarten that I still know, that still know me and know me as just Jake. They don't refer to me as Jake Shore, or like, and those things keep me who I am. And I also, I think I find it a struggle sometimes because I worry that sometimes people think I'm doing certain things because of the TikTok algorithm or because whatever. But I try and really, I try and make it authentic as possible. But also, I'm sometimes I'm just blatant, like I'm trying to be right now. It's like I've literally been dancing my whole life. I used to watch Michael Jackson Thriller videos, Chris Brown videos religiously. My dad has put me on to so much music since the day I was born. I watched WWE religiously since the day I was born. Like, so the performance side and everything is like, it's been instilled in me. I can't change that. And it just so happened to also work really well with the way social media is put out today. 5 years ago on Instagram, you had to make this whole, you had to make your life look like a production and make it look perfect. And, you always knew that one dude that seemed to be in front of every sports car every weekend. And it's like, is that really your life? It worked out perfectly for me that like the way I had been on social media is actually wants to be consumed right now, which is the authenticity, the kind of off the cuff. Now, on top of that, though, I understand that that's how it is now, and I've learned to play into it as well. I've
Right.
learned to, focus on storytelling, but sometimes, even good storytellers know how to embellish things so that, you can make it even hit a little bit harder. But no,
Yeah.
everything that I do, it does come from a genuine spot. It does come from a place that is just authentically, truly me. And I think, yeah, people, they're attracted to that because it goes back to just my first interactions with DJs in general. I remember watching a DJ at my school dance. Dude was so into his own set and dancing and just, and then I remember seeing a DJ at another set, like this is in grammar school, and I'm like, the dude wasn't even moving, looked like he didn't even want to be there. And like to me, I was like, yo, if you're not gonna love your own set, why would I want to love your set? And I think it's the same with anything else. It's like if I don't showcase how much I love the creations I'm making, why would anybody else? And some people can get away with that. Some people are a lot less animated than I am. But I don't know. That's just who I am. So it's a little bit of both now. I definitely have learned to be strategic about it and, lean into it more because I've learned that it's helped. Just like any other good business person, right? If something's working, you lean into it, right? But I think at the core of it all, yeah, man, it's just me. It really is.
I think
That's
if you're
awesome.
not being authentic and you're not being yourself, then having to do all of these pieces of content and putting all this stuff out into the world becomes work. Then it's
Yes, 100%.
like your personality is like the exact opposite of like my personality, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm more like reserved, chill. Like I'm never like putting out. I would never put out a TikTok with me like dancing because it's just not me. It would come off
yeah,
so fake, you know.
yeah.
I'd pay to see
Um,
it though.
But I want
maybe.
to, and maybe you're getting to it, but like I hear this all the time, and I think this is where so many DJs, and I'm not saying this is where your perspective's at, but it doesn't matter if you're a Jake Shore, animated, dancing, live, doing silly skits, whatever, or you're a Gary W, right? Where you're not that. Like you can still be yourself because at the end of the day, that's all you can be. And I've
Right.
seen a lot of people that aren't nearly as animated or aren't nearly as like out there that can still find a way to post content, and still be yourself. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you got to just make sure you're doing. You're being yourself because yeah, you may see a so and so who's like really live and like, oh well, I can't do that because that's not me, and so I can't post on social media. That I don't think that's true, and
Right.
actually I know it's not true because I've seen it work for other modes of people, types of people, and I also work with artists on their social media, and none of them are like me. So it's definitely possible. I think it's all about just kind of finding what you're comfortable in and what and allowing whatever you're comfortable in to still be yourself. So I just wanted to like make that clear too, because I can already hear like the people in the back, well, I'm not like him, so I can't post on social media. And I think as long as you're yourself, that's the key.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
find your lane. I mean, Gary, I think for you, for sure, a lot of these clips that we cut from the podcast is like a great way for you to stay active on socials and
Yeah.
like get your, get your the stuff that you're into out into the world and get people an idea about the things that are important to you and like just we have the
Right.
podcast, like it's great. It's just easy every week we have content
Yeah,
and
that's
like that
huge,
could be
man.
your
And like
lane
this
kind of
is
thing.
you. That's the thing. This is you. This is what you're really doing. I think that's when social media broke for me too. Is like, remember when I first started TikTok, I was like, okay, I get it. Let me just start doing what I know to do. I'll post a clip of my song and say, link in the bio. But it just didn't do much. And then I stopped and thought, okay, well, what's one thing that I'm doing every single day that may also be a little educational, maybe inspirational, maybe entertaining, but it's not going to cause me to go out of my way or not be myself. And that was just like every day on the way to work, I would be jamming to some house music, and I'd be dancing and lip syncing, and that's just what I would do. So eventually I just put a camera on it and called it House Music You Should Start Your Day With. And next thing you know, boom. But like going back to it, it's like, just look at the things that you're doing on your everyday life. And that's why this works for you, Gary, right? Because like you do this every week. So yeah,
Right.
it should be part of your content pillars, right? It should be one of those things that you're putting out every week. And I'm sure there's other stuff too. Like I know one of my clients is like a big coffee drinker, big. He's from New York, I think, if I remember correctly, and he's just a big like, breakfast sandwich coffee drinker. I'm like, bro, you can take just that, and we can find a way how to mix it in with your music or mix it in with like, there's always a way to make it back around what you really want to get out there. And I think those are the best ways because then it doesn't seem like you're so selly about it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's
I
great
love that.
advice.
It's great advice. We're going to dig more into TikTok, but I want to ask you one more question more about just your brand and some of the stuff you've been putting out more recently.
Yeah.
But like, just like the 90s nostalgia, the starter jackets, the pants.
The sound,
I've
baby,
been loving it.
It's the sound,
But, yeah, and a lot of your music matches, a lot of that. So how did that kind of get incorporated into your brand, and why is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, man, if you're a DJ watching this, like, I'm living everything like recently. So I hope that this like really hits home for so many people. And I love that we already talked about how like it comes in different ways for different people. In the last 3 years, I got to a point where like I knew what I could produce, but I still really hadn't found like that sound, right? Like everybody's like, I gotta find my sound. I gotta find my sound. But honestly, your sound finds you. And what I mean by that is I I was born in 92, right? I'm aging myself now. Damn it. My manager told me not to do this. But born in 92. So by the time the 2000s came, I was only 8 years old. So to me, and being from Chicago, you know what I missed in the 90s. I missed all that. I feel like there's a chip on my shoulder because I missed what I felt like was a golden era of just so many things, including music, sports for Chicago, etc. So like I always knew that kind of. But then fast forward to like this past spring, I knew that there was a song that I wanted to flip, and I knew that there was a similar song that the Space Jam remix. Y'all ready for this? That I was playing in my set that was just killing it every time that I was playing it. And I was like, you know what? I noticed what this does for my sets and how it makes me feel. So clear as day, like why am I not just taking that arrangement, finding a song with a similar vibe and trying to make that? So in comes the song I've Got the Power, which obviously is like the staple of the 90s house music, right? Dance music. It's commercialized because of jock jams and everybody knows it, right? You can't not know that song. I also had been kind of flexing the word hectic on like clothes of mine and things of that nature. And just so happened that song has a part where the guy says it's getting kind of hectic. And I was like, okay, well this is perfect. So I started putting that together. I posted one clip of it last spring at Miami Music Week in Miami, and it just blew up, right? Like went insane. Like people from my grammar school I haven't heard from in years are commenting. That's how you know. When people come out of the woodwork, you did something. But what I'm getting at though is like that song for me, it still isn't my most streamed song, but that song has been played by some of my favorite and the biggest DJs in the world, like Fisher, Tiesto, and that was the first song where I really felt like this is me. I didn't have to think of a marketing plan. That was the marketing plan. That was just me. Like it was my whole story. That song meant the 90s to me. It meant the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to me. It meant so many different things to me organically that I was like, okay, this is the sound. The sound has finally found me. So along with that, and obviously the response to it, it also helps that the 90s sound, rave sound, is kind of like full on coming back now, just like
Yeah.
just like clothes, right? The 90s style, 2000 style has come back full circle. It's not like I'm that old guy saying, "Oh, this is how it should be." It's like it's just coming back naturally, so it works perfectly. Um, and because of all that happening, this last 6 months, my management team and just like everything about me has been about like really like double down on that, right? So now when you see my logo and you see the pictures and you see everything that like I'm producing since then too, yes, I'm double tripling down, all because the sound finally found me. But it's always been there, if that makes sense. Like it's just like it makes sense to me. It doesn't feel it feels organic, you know. So then that led me to like really start to like hone in on what should my pictures look like, what should I be wearing. You know, I got a jersey on right now with a backward snapback, like, but it's also just that's who I am. You know, kind of goes back to what we just talked about: be who you are. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy how it all, but it again took me 2.5, 3 years to finally come to that point. You know.
No, I think it's really cool that you're just focusing on things that you like and the sound that you like or the clothes that you like or how you like to dance and all that stuff. And because you're focused on something that you're into, you're creating this brand and music that other people are really into. And I think that's really inspiring because I think you're right. A lot of people are constantly chasing like, what's my sound? And
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to kind of make the stuff or be who you are. And sometimes, again, like the fans and the people will find you when you're putting out yourself into the world. And I think that's
Yeah,
so
100%.
important.
I mean,
Keep
I think
reiterating it.
again, like all these decisions don't go, I'm not just like winging it, right? Like I said, I paid attention to how a certain song was doing in my set, and then based on the crowd reaction and how it made me feel, and then I took that and used it as a blueprint to create what became Hectic, you know. But in a macro level, what I'm doing is I'm making music for my live shows. You know, I was also at a point there I was making these songs, but I find that like, yeah, I can play it in a car, but I can't really play it at my shows. And my shows is like a whole nother part of this whole equation, right? It's like all the antics and the showmanship and everything. Like the music has to match that, so my sets have to match that, and that was a huge piece of it too. So like these decisions, while it sounded like maybe it just made them sound like they just came, right? They're all calculated. And I guess, yeah, underlying it all is I'm still trying to stay true to myself, which I feel like is now becoming the theme of this call. But it's real. I mean, not everybody's sound is I think we get caught up as producers and DJs too, is like what playing the hottest thing, or what's now or but what's now wasn't what's now. You know what I mean? It's always like it comes
It's
out
ever
because
changing.
right. It's always changing. You know what I mean? And like, who's to say I might drift away from the 90s sound eventually? And there's a chance that I might, because I think that also marks me as like a good artist. You look at guys like Diplo. He's changed so many times over the years, but not once have I heard something from him and been like, yeah, that's not him. Even his country
Yeah.
album, I still was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's West though. That's still him. So I think that's the key. It sounds like, right?
I mean, you mentioned Tiesto earlier, and like the Tiesto trance life is sort of all the way full circle here,
It's
where
crazy.
he's starting to make that music again, which is super cool to see. Uh, and it's been how many years? 30 years, probably 20, 25
Crazy.
years or whatever it's been.
25 years,
I just
yeah.
I just met him for the first time this month at a festival, which was like wild. Uh, but also just taking away from that too, it's like, yeah, that guy's been doing it forever, and man, he loves what he does. He's still so happy and excited, and you would think somebody like that kind of has every reason to just be like, not trying to talk to people, like leave me
Yeah.
alone. No, man, he's just what an example. Period. Like he's just an example. But yeah, how awesome is it too that like the music he kind of started out is like again kind of coming back full circle. And yeah, it sure works out for me right now. That's for sure.
So, all right. So we kind of brought up the Hectic thing, and you brought up Fisher. I saw on socials you actually got to like hang out with him and meet him, and what was
Yes.
that like? I think everybody sees Fisher as this larger than life human being on
Yeah.
everywhere, and I saw you got to hang with him, and I know he's been playing your record. So what was that like?
Yes. Man, surreal. Surreal and everything you would expect from meeting Fisher. I guess, for me, he's been playing my record and playing it like nonstop, and for a DJ to do that and his team, to put, I don't even know how he got the record, but obviously it hit him, right? Like it made sense for him. And just seeing that definitely did a lot for me. And just then eventually, like I remember in the last couple of months, people are like, well, have you met him yet? Like, has he reached out to you? I was like, no, like haven't met him. And like, just felt like, damn, like gotta figure that out, one thing led to another. I was out in Arizona, heard he was out in Arizona. I was connected with the guys who were throwing the festival. My management put me in like group chat with all of them, and kind of just set it up so I was there, right place, right time. And it's always a little nervous when you're trying to like get somebody's attention that you really don't know. Like I hate being that person. I don't want to ever be like the guy that's hovering, waiting to make that move. But the kid I was with was like, dude, you got to do it. Like, what do you like? How he knows you, so just go up and say what's up. So I waited until he kind of broke from the group because everybody's trying to talk to him backstage prior to him going on. He finally moved away from the group. I made my move. I was like, yo, Fish. He's like, what's up, mate? How you doing? And I was like, you know the song Hectic? He's like, oh, I love that song. He's like, oh, wait, yeah, him. I'm like, it's like, out of the, that's my impression. I was like,
good.
Right off the get-go, man, he was like, oh, I love that. It's like, he was just so nice. Like, and he was walking to his set. He's like, come on with me. And so he's like, I'm walking with him now to his set. And it's at this huge hangar in Arizona. Probably like 5,000 to 7,000 people there. And now I'm walking with Fisher and his team. And he could have easily just been like, yeah, great record, peace. But I took my chance and it was like, yo, I got a lot more where that came from. Obviously, I want to send him to you, but I don't know how to get him to you. He's like, oh, take my number. So I got his number, and now, sent him over some tracks. And I was like, I love that you're playing them, but I'm trying to like release them on your catch and release records. Like send them over, So yeah, I can't really talk too much more past that, but it was the best experience I could have asked for, especially out of nowhere. Like it wasn't supposed to happen. It's not why I was in Arizona. I was there to play. And man, it sure made the weekend worth it. That's for sure.
Yeah, like
Sometimes
what if you
ask.
Yeah,
There you go. Sometimes you just gotta ask, man.
That's like a huge situation where it's like, all right, what if you didn't go up to him and you didn't start that relationship and you didn't get his phone number and, I feel like there's those little tiny moments that's like such a little thing. Like, should I go talk to him? Should I not? And then you do it, and it's like, holy shit! If I didn't do that, like none of this stuff would have happened.
Yeah, and I think also again, I think it's important. That's important to talk about. This factor though is, again, another guy, especially in that moment, he could have easily just said "fuck off." You know what I mean? But what you're seeing on screen matches what you see in person. And again, just like Tiesto, those are things that I and any DJ should anybody anywhere professionally. When you get to a certain level, don't get jaded. Don't let that success consume you. And I know there's always certain circumstances where maybe he can't talk or whatever. But like again, for myself personally, what an example to aspire to. Because at some point, I would love for some young kid that I've been playing their record. That's the other thing. It wasn't completely cold, right? Like he knew exactly who I was when I said the word hectic, which was cool in itself. But I think, one day if I can get in that same situation, like I want to do the same exact thing. I think that's one thing I've realized about even being in my position, which it still blows my mind. But, I'll go to shows and even outside of the shows or just in certain arenas, I'll have that producer, I'll have that somebody who knows me. And I'm like, how do you know me? Like, I'm still like, what? The best thing you can do in those situations is like almost out-fan the fan. They freak out. They're like, wait, why are you being so nice? Or why are you like so excited to see me? I'm excited to see you. And because then it just turns out to you guys are just like vibing, right? And I think that's one of the coolest things I've been able to do. And yeah, then I get that response like, oh my God, you're just like you are on social media. Like, yeah, I am. I'm just same dude. What's up?
It's one thing that we've learned big time, especially coming out of COVID and then starting the podcast, was just like approaching DJs and producers that Kareem and I looked up to, and it was like, oh, well, they just DM'd us back or they'll shoot us a text back or whatever it might be. And it's like, well, that was easy. All we had to do, like we were saying, just ask if they wanted to be on the show. And it's not, we overthought it for a while. And it was like, well, just reach out. It's so easy just to reach out and be in contact with people these days. Just do it.
It really
most
is,
people
man.
are most people are really cool, and most people have been where the younger they think about the younger version of themselves, like, oh, I remember when I was trying to make moves and get my music into the right people's hands, and like good people are gonna talk to you and gonna take your demo and probably respond to you, kind of thing. And it's like
Yeah.
I think it's important to see bigger artists doing that, and then when it happens to you, do the same thing and reciprocate that, and like it's just better for the industry as a whole, for sure.
Yeah, it's better for the industry. It also, I think, I try and minimize the whole idolism factor of it sometimes, to the fact that, like, at the end of the day, Fisher wants you to listen to his songs just like I want you to listen to my songs. Fisher wants you to comment on his post just like as bad as I want you to comment on my post. So, marginally, you know, not that different people at the end of the day, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think he gets that. And some people, they do happen to get jaded by, certain amount of success and fame. And I think at some point everybody does a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, just be a good person, right? And I think that shined through with Fish, and I hope that shines through with me. And it sounds like you guys have a good head on that already too. So yeah, at the end of the day, we're all just people. I'm just a normal dude, so
Yeah.
I'm just making music and happen to be kind of good at it, I guess. So, or some people say that they like it, so I might as well just keep trying at it.
Nah, absolutely. Keep pumping. You're pumping music, man. You got a bunch of releases this year, 2023 and 2022, and I think it's cool to kind of see the songs that you're choosing to remix.
Yeah.
It does fit with a lot of what you're doing, but it's also like very nostalgic for me because it's a lot of the songs that I sort of grew up on too.
Yeah.
Like the softly killing me softly, Fuji's track.
That one's such a hitter in my shows, man. You want to talk about getting people to like sing along for a moment? It's cool. That one's really cool.
I think it's really cool to hear you talk about like, oh, well, I find gaps in my sets, or I find a song that I really like, but maybe doesn't fit into my style, and like you remix those songs, because I do a lot of the same thing with edits and a little bit with remixes, but it's like I love this vocal or I love this version of this song, but it doesn't fit with my style, and it's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna go make something that fits with my style, so then it fits in my sets, and just pulling from like reactions of fans on songs and making it your own. I think
So
I
huge.
just love that tactic in creating music, and I think more people need to kind of do that. And I loved hearing you say
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I didn't learn that until about a year ago, and so a lot of even up to my most recent release, a lot of this music, and I don't want to downplay it at all because it's my music. I mean, I love it, but that stuff was made a year ago, So I think Hectic was just one of those things where I made it 6 months ago or last spring, and I teased it, and it went so crazy that I had to put it out next. But some of the stuff that you've heard recently has been done for quite some time. But yeah, I think in the last 6 months, the stuff that I've been, somebody told me that you're printing them out right now. I feel like, yeah, I definitely am. But I'm doing it on that fact. Can I play this in my set? And then before I even, like, once I do like get it, rinsed out, I actually do play it in my set, and it is about that reaction. It's about that feeling that you see and hear from the crowd or just yourself. I mean, if you get both of those, even better. That's how I'm making music now. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to, the streams and everything will come, because if DJs are playing, don't forget, no matter what platform there is, the DJs are really what make things count. Because if you're getting played at every little club, nook and cranny, at every city, the streams will come because people will hear it and they're going to be like, what is that song? And it's, it happens. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I want anyways. I don't want to make something that I can't really play in my own set. I want to make something that I can play and it's going to rock the dance floor. And how do you figure that out? Well, you got about 10,000 other songs in your sets or in your USB or your computer. Which one of those has set your crowds on fire every single time? Take the similar arrangement, maybe similar sounds. I think arrangement is probably the best in my case. What I've done is use those as blueprints and then make something of your own with it. It's almost like a surefire way to be like, all right, I know this is going to work, you know?
Do you ever mess around like after you have played a track that you made and you're like, all right, well, I could have fixed this, and like go back and tinker around with it? Kareem, I've
Oh,
actually
yeah.
never asked you that. Have you ever done that too?
Yeah, I mean the version of whatever song I actually put out into the world probably has about 3 or 4 or 5 other iterations that I've at least tested in my sets first.
Okay.
It
Yeah, and
depends.
that's the cool
Sometimes
part.
more than others.
That's the cool part too, because I've done, like, I remember "Rock Your Hips" was almost a full 2 verses was that whole song, and then obviously for like when I finally printed it out to DSPs and everything, like it was way shorter and it's really just the hook, which works really well for streaming and just the flow of most people's sets. But I took it one step further. When I play it in my sets, I play that whole version. And that's the only version that you can only hear that version at a live show of mine. You can't hear it anywhere else. So it's like you kind of
That's
can
cool.
make those mistakes or those like edits work back for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people, I always call it like the live show version or whatever. And like you can only hear that version if you come to one of my shows. You know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people put out the VIP edits, which is the variation version of songs too. So, like, if you wanted to release it as a separate thing, you could, or a free remix or whatever. So, I think that's super cool, though. Yeah, you
Yeah,
got to test your
dialing it in
music.
is yeah, dialing it in has been a huge piece of it. I think it also comes with like me going back to the drawing board and fixing something is so much easier now than it used to be. I definitely have like come into my own workflow. That used to be such a hard thing for me, but now I have such a pretty dialed in workflow that I'm able to like test press things. Like for the first time though, last couple Fridays ago, when that Friday I met Fisher at my set, I had a flight out to Arizona. I started a track, I finished it to the point where I knew I could play it out. I played it, my first song. It was my first song, which that's an even bigger deal, right? To open up with something you just made, and it smacked. And I was like, that's the first time I ever did that. First time I ever
Yes.
was able to like that feeling is like crazy. There's no other feeling like that when you make something, fresh press it, you play it, and you hear that pop. Oh, it's so nice. It's gonna be
It's
it's actually a
goosebumps
me
for
and
sure.
Wookie collab. It's a the It's Not Right Whitney Houston song. It's not right. I'll send
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
I
to
saw
y'all.
you
I'll
teasing.
send it.
I saw you teasing it out.
Yes, I teased it out on TikTok too the next day, and it kind of like did pretty well. So there's nothing better than that, and I think that's like me now even coming into my own is being able to really like road test shit. Um, it's awesome, man. Like there's no better feeling than that. But yeah, there's a lot of
That
times where you have to
that's
go
another
back and fix it.
That's another really smart song selection choice, right? It's like one of those things where every girl in the whole room is going to sing that hook no matter what.
Yep,
And you're
they
using
do.
that knowledge of being a DJ and what works in those rooms to then bring to your production side. And I think like without that DJ experience, you might not be able to take advantage of that fact, you know?
That has helped me so much. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I think with all the producing I do, there's a lot of dope producers out there, but sometimes they pick stuff and I'm just like, why are we doing that? Like it's to me to remix something, it's either got to be like an anthemic moment in like when you hear it, you know it, no doubt, almost 90% of the room knows it, or it's got to be something that's like so hot right now, like you're trying to catch the virality of that right now. But now that I've like double tripled down on my 90s stuff, it's yeah, I'm sifting through stuff that's like I know is gonna hit, and you hit it on the head. If I didn't DJ for 10 years, plus all the knowledge my dad has instilled in me and all my other experiences that have kind of built out my musical palette, for sure would not have had as much success because I do feel like my song choices, just like you guys, I'm sure do being DJs. Nobody's fucking with your song choice. Like you
Yeah.
got that down. Yeah.
So, all right, but we'll get. I want to get to TikTok, but I do want to ask you about your latest release. So, On My Mind just came out. Tell me a little bit how that song came about and why it's important and why you love it.
Yeah, Off My Mind is like again one of those that like I finished last year technically, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it because I still hadn't really found my sound yet. And I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say that it necessarily fits like a '90s vibe, but to me, it was special because honestly, that vocal is just like tantalizing. It's like it's almost a little kind of puts you in like a spell. And like I always walked away from that vocal like humming it. Anybody I showed it, they hummed it, and it sounds like Jeremiah to me. Which I think one thing that's gonna always hold true for me is that I will do my best to always shine light on Chicago artists past, present, and future with my collabs, with my, remix choices or whatever. And something about that just sounded like a Jeremiah tune. And I was like, yo, if I was ever to work with him, like this is how it would sound. There's also a chance for me to kind of like, I'm really big into like cheesy shit, like making a song for a season, and spooky season just passed, and I felt like what better song like from out of my arsenal than that. It has that dark vibe to it, um kind of obsessive, kind of like whatever, but yeah, I think that's some of the reasons why it was special to me. It felt like if I don't put this out now, I don't know if it's going to make sense in the next year.
Right.
um but I was very proud of the production on it. I think that was one of my more in-depth songs. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and like even use the word like it feels alive, which is so huge as a producer to hear. So yeah, that's what stands out for me on that one. It's kind of a dark horse, I kind of technically self-released it, and so it's not streaming crazy by any means, but it's definitely a piece of work that I'm proud of. So yeah,
Love that, man. Another thing you've been doing, you've been making music videos for all your tracks, right?
yeah, trying
And
to.
I think I think I forget what exactly you said, but it's like I've been making the worst music videos of all time or something like that. But
Normalize making the worst music videos of all time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it important for you to put out music videos? Does that just kind of fit into the 90s nostalgia type thing, or what's the reason behind the music videos? I laugh at them. They're
Yes,
funny, man. I love it.
yes and no. I think with any release these days, you have to have like a nice spectrum of content, right? You have your traditional like I'm gonna flex the cover art or like the visualizer that goes on the Spotify background. But for me, I feel like this is where luckily I have so many different modes of how to put out content. I can do something serious and make it look really polished. I can do something that's more of like a skit. I can set up, this is the rooftop where I do like all those house music you should start your day with. I could do one of those. I can like show you what it looked like in the studio. And then there's just ones where honestly I see, and this is a tidbit for anybody out there who's struggling with like how to come up with content ideas. The other thing that clicked for me with social media a couple years ago is this is not, nobody is reinventing the wheel. Just like you reference music when you're making music, I reference other people's content. I don't go on social media as a consumer. I go on social media like I'm sample hunting or like I'm I'm looking for
I love
new
that.
ideas on how I can take somebody else's idea, twist it, remix it, and make it fit for what I'm trying to do. And there's been a bunch of videos right now. I don't know who the guys are, but they do that style of video where they're like shaky camera, they're running out of somewhere crazy, and then they do like some funny ass dance. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this for off my mind. Um, and I also saw that hook on another person's video that I really like. I watch their content all the time and I love it. And I took the hook and I just rearranged a few words. And yeah, so that idea was just a mixture of like three or four other people's ideas. And I'm not ashamed to say that because if you look at anybody's content, you could probably pinpoint where they got their inspiration from, just like music. Just like 90s hip hop got their inspiration from 70s funk. Just like, 90s house music got their inspiration from others. It's just all a remix of stuff and how you can like make it new or make it your own. So that specific one, like I said, is just kind of taking three or four different ideas and putting it into one. And I try and like almost troll myself when I can because I feel like being too serious on social media, especially for me, can come off very arrogant maybe or very like, oh, here we go, another song, whereas like I can like just say, yeah, this is the worst music video of all time, but let's normalize it because this is what I got today. I think people enjoy it. I think they enjoy the humor in it. I mean, it sounds like you guys did, so that's good. uh, but yeah, I think that's just another part of my brand where it's like I don't want to be too serious with it. I don't want to seem like I'm like this like dude who's trying to be this mega superstar DJ. Like, no, I'm still just gonna be myself. You know. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of where that idea came from.
So you mentioned that you kind of got hired by Big Night to do some of this TikTok or get their brand's TikToks up and running. For DJs that are listening right now that might be struggling with content, what is some advice that you can give them as far as either how to get started or how to just come up with some ideas for what to post? Because I think that's the biggest barrier that most DJs are telling me, like, I don't really know what to post.
Yeah, I think, we've kind of already hit on two big ones, right? Be yourself. At the end of the day, you got to be yourself. And within being yourself, meaning like, don't try and post things or put out things that are going to cause you to go completely out of your way or have to hit up two photographers or get all this like fancy schmancy lettering and stuff that goes across the. You don't need all that. I mean, I can't tell you how many countless times I've seen like a video of some like dude's feet go viral, right? And there he didn't do anything with it, right? But I think being true to yourself, but also within that, I mean, taking a look at what are you doing in your everyday life that may be, these three things are important, that may be something that you put out that's going to be either educational, inspirational, or entertaining. And if it can be one of those three things, great. If it can be all three of those three things, even better. Because at the end of the day, it may seem like I'm putting out content for me and my brand and my music, but I'm always trying to spin it so that it has some sort of value for you. People do not consume social media for anybody else but themselves. They want to know, what about this video? How does it affect me? How does it help me? How does it intrigue me, entertain me, educate me, etc.? And then the other side of it is, don't try and reinvent the wheel. I think that's another big thing that I just talked about. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. What I would suggest is if you're a musician, artist, DJ, look at 5 DJs, not necessarily for their music, but for their content. Take a look at those 5 DJs or 5 musicians, whatever, and like they don't even have to be in the same realm as you, but just 5 creators, let's just say in general. Study them, find posts that you like, find things that they're doing that you like, and like I said, reference that. Pick out what are some things that they're doing that are doing well. Ask yourself, how can I take that same idea, that same template, if you will, reference it, remix it, reuse it, because I think trying to come up with like completely original content in a world where there are millions of videos posted every single day, you're gonna slow yourself down. Because to be real with you right now, it is all about how much you can put out, and obviously you want to put out quality over quantity, but I'm a big believer of putting out a quantity of quality. So if you can get yourself to that mode, it's even better, and you're going to help yourself by referencing other people and also doing things that posting about things that you're doing already in your daily life, those low lift things. If you're spending every week trying to do things that make you go out of your way and come up with new ideas that are super original, you're probably going to post maybe 1 or 2 things a week, if that. So I think out of those are some of the big things, realizations that I had early on that have allowed me to put out the amount of quality, that I have.
I think
And
one
so
other
much.
thing.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No,
Yeah,
I
you're
was just
good.
gonna
No,
say
no, no, good.
one other thing that kind of feeds into that as well, and it helped me when I was struggling a little bit, was creating a schedule. And after I
Yeah.
compile all these different ideas, maybe I spend a couple days shooting a bunch of different things, but coming up with a schedule, like on Monday, I'm going to post this, and kind of building that out for 2 weeks at a time or a month at a time, so
Yes.
that when I
Yeah.
wake up on a Monday, it's like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing to post for content this week. What am I going to do? You've already planned all that, shot it, and now all you have to do is open up the app and post it or schedule it or whatever, however you like
Yeah.
to get your content out there. But that was a huge barrier for me, and planning it was the best way for me to kind of overcome that. So,
Gary, did you have
all right,
something
I
to
think,
say too before I jump in?
yeah,
Sorry.
Gary, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, no, you're good. No, I was going to say that really did help. You were way more consistent, Green, when you set your content up in a scheduled way, and like you had it all written out in front of you, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and shone through in all of your socials. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
think that's like same with me. I don't personally work off a schedule. I think I do batch though. Like today, like I batched a bunch of drafts, a bunch of different things, and I think the reason why I don't schedule as much, and again, this works for everybody differently, but I just know that life happens, and there may be something that I like happens today that I'm like, yo, I'm like I met Fisher, I'm posting about this tomorrow. So like to have a schedule, sometimes like it doesn't always work out perfectly, but what batching and having a schedule will help out with is maybe it's not super structured and like it has to be that day. But if you have a day where you're like, I don't know what to post, well, now you have your drafts you can go back to. So
Right.
it's definitely not going to hurt to be prepared. That's for sure. Like,
Yeah.
100%. So I think it's just each to their own, you know?
A lot of great advice in this episode.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Is there anything you
All
want to promo that we haven't talked about, or any new music or any shows or anything that you want to put out into the world?
Yeah, I definitely got some big shows coming up, and I would definitely like to get some people out to those. If you're in the New York area on November 18th, which is a Saturday, doing kind of like a sunset session at Somewhere Nowhere, which is a really dope club in New York. Where are you guys out of, by the way? I didn't ask that.
New York, and guess who's off on November 18th?
Oh, you gotta go.
Yes,
love-
please do.
I love that room. That room's gorgeous.
The room is gorgeous. Yes, it's a really dope place. It's definitely a big step for me in the New York market. Would love to have you guys out there. Just hit me up after this. We'll make sure you guys are all squared away. But that's a big show coming up November 18th. I'm going on a little bit of a West Coast run in the beginning of December. So December 2nd, I'm going to be at Temple in San Francisco, which I'm super excited about as well. It's a really cool room if anybody's listening in from that area. So December 2nd, and then that following weekend, December 8th, I'm going to be in San Diego at Bloom Nightclub doing a headline debut there. So I'm really excited to get out to the West Coast. I feel like that's just one area that I've gone as far as like Arizona, and so I'm really excited to get out that way. And yeah, just expect a lot more music to come out in the top of the year. I think I'm going to be kind of like settling down, maybe a remix or two before the end of the year, but really gearing up for 2024. The 90s sound is live and in full effect, as they say. And you guys are going to be hearing a lot of stuff from me. So yeah, be on the lookout.
We'll
Super
make sure
dope,
to link
man.
everything in the show notes too.
Yeah, for
Would love
sure.
that.
Couple things that I want to promo before we go. Tonight, if you're listening to this and you're local, New York City, New Jersey, we have our Get Down Open Decks, Mills Tavern, Hoboken, New Jersey. It's free. If you want to come DJ or sign up, DM me, show up, sign up, come, play whatever kind of music you want. It's been a really dope, super creative. It's fun to meet everybody. So if you're around Wednesday, tonight, Mills Tavern, Hoboken. The other thing, Cream and Friends Edit Pack Volume 3 just dropped. We're number 4 overall on Hyped Edit. So huge shout to Cases, CRG, DeVille. If you guys want to go grab that for free, we'll put it in the show notes too. So thank you guys. Jake, man, thank you for joining us. This has been awesome. I feel like we could keep going. There's a lot of stuff we didn't get to today. But
I know. I'm sorry too if I ramble. I'm so passionate to link with other DJs too, and like I think that's so important that you guys are doing what you're doing, because at the end of the day, that networking is so invaluable, and it's not a competition. We can all get to where we want to get to, and if you realize that, and you realize that just having like a bunch of other people to like address things with and touch on, it just gets you there that much faster, you know. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the scene and the culture. It's guys like you that make this whole thing really worth it at the end of the day. So you guys should give yourself a pat on the back for like having something like this for people to listen to, DJs or not.
Thank you,
Appreciate
man.
that. Thank
That
you
really
very much.
keeps us going, keeps us recording.
Yeah,
and like, we
well,
really
I mean, you
appreciate
guys
it.
are well in. I didn't realize this is like 136th episode.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. Consistency too is another
Who
thing.
knows how
if
we
you're a
got
DJ
here?
listener. Yeah, consistency, man. You guys are being consistent, and at the end of the day, that's always gonna shine through too. So I can't wait to meet you in New York. So let's make
Hell
that
yeah,
happen.
man. We'll talk. We'll link. I'm gonna definitely come to that show. So
Yeah, let's do
All
it,
right,
man.
cool.
I'll see you guys soon.
I
Jake Shore,
appreciate
thank
you.
you for joining us. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Peace,
Peace.
guys.